the people from SGI. We have Anna Pierre, and we have Chris Clement, Karen Downs, we have Brian Klein, Ludin, and Nicole is outside. That's Ms. Cole Berry, she's outside. So I'm going to welcome you and thank you for coming today. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. There are drinks available at any point in time. Anytime you want to get up and stretch, move around, grab a drink, please feel free to do so. Washrooms are to the left down the hall through double doors on the right-hand side. This meeting will take at least 1 hour, depending upon the discussion. We can go till 2 hours. I think there was a lot of trouble, which is a lot of time. We'll see how we do. There was a handout. Did everybody get the one-page handout? Everybody got it? Yeah, everybody's got it? Good, okay, thanks. We asked you before the session if we could record the session, and I want to just reiterate, is there anybody who feels uncomfortable with us recording the session? We're doing this so that we can take some notes later and make sure that we have accurate representation of what actually happened here. Any concerns, though? No? Okay. Okay, great. So just want to let you know that currently SGI is conducting a number of consultations with a number of different groups such as yourselves and to the public throughout October. Your input today and input from all the other consultations that we will be doing will be used as input for developing a policy around raised vehicles. Okay. Now the question is, so why did we invite you here today? What's the reason for actually meeting? So SGI currently is getting more and more inquiries around raised vehicles from inspection stations and from the law enforcement. Now both groups have noted that there's been an increase in raised vehicles, just the number of raised vehicles within the province. As well, we are receiving customer inquiries as well with respect to raised vehicles too. Now the regulations in Saskatchewan today reference the federal regulations. Now, as I understand, the federal regulations require vehicle manufacturers to test and to certify their products, meaning their vehicles, to meet certain safety standards. And this has to do with, let's say, braking, maybe with lights, and with crash tests, for example. Now, if a vehicle is excessively modified, again, excessively modified, then that vehicle is considered not to meet the standards. Okay. However, I mean, SGI does recognize that vehicles can be modified safely. Now, again, modified safely, again, we're talking about within reasonable limits. Okay. So, again, there is some research and some test data that we have, and Karen will show some information that we have that speaks to this issue in terms of, you know, limits and the safety of the vehicles themselves. What we're really trying to say is that the existing regulations in the province of Saskatchewan are somewhat unclear as to what those height limits might be. Okay, so therefore, what's happening then is currently is that vehicles that are raised are at risk of being removed from the road, either through law enforcement or through inspection stations. Okay. So SGI has the authority, though, to make changes to the provincial regulations so that we can make certain exemptions with respect to raised vehicles. So why we're here then tonight is we need your help. We're here to get your input on those exemptions that you think we need to place within the regulations. We need to really answer the question, how much can a vehicle be raised when it becomes excessively high and affects the safety of either the occupants of the vehicle or road users? In other words, what we're really saying is, how high is too high without compromising the safety of the people who are in the vehicle themselves or those on the road? So we want your input and your feedback on that today so that we can develop a policy around the interests that you have. So that's the focus of the meeting today. How high is too high? So tonight we will receive a presentation from SGI. Following that, we will break into two groups and we will have some discussion around the topic of raised vehicles. We have some particular questions, but we need your input and your feedback again on this question of how high is too high, what changes do we need to make with respect to height limits with the regulations that are in place now. So during the presentation today, if you do not understand any part of the presentation, by all means, ask a question to clarify what's being said. You understand what's being said. But all other questions, I would ask that we leave them for later on when we break into the groups, and we can have a further discussion around those. Does that make sense, everybody? Yeah? Okay, fantastic. What I'm going to do is tear down from SHI Vehicle Centers, and this is the presentation for roughly, how long? 20 minutes or so, hopefully. Okay.
Thank you, Murray. I'd like to thank you all again for coming out. I think I've had an opportunity to talk or email all of you at one point in the last while. It's nice to meet you in person. I look forward to hearing your input after the presentation. The presentation, there's items in this presentation that you all already know. And again, I appreciate your patience with it. This is the same presentation that we intend to discuss with the public as well. We're interested in your input on it, so away I go. We're here to talk about aftermarket race vehicles. Aftermarket race vehicles are vehicles that have been, where modifications have been made to them after they leave the factory. So we're talking about modifications to vehicles, again, after, in some cases, they leave the lot, the dealer's lot, for example. Not in all cases. Again, the aftermarket modifications, again, can be done by the owners themselves at home, with private owners. They can be done, so there's vehicle accessory shops and garages which also provide this service. The parts, some of the parts themselves can be purchased either through some suppliers, or in some cases there's some homemade accessories. Again, we're here to discuss modifications that affect vehicle safety and performance. I'm not talking about cosmetic modifications to vehicles. We're not talking about cosmetic body panels. We're not talking about running boards, okay? We're talking about modifications to vehicles that affect, again, the safety systems, steering, stopping, suspension, those types of things. What's a raised vehicle? A raised vehicle is a motor vehicle whose ride height has been increased by the installation of an aftermarket body lift, suspension lift, oversized replacement tires, or combination of these modifications. Some examples of suspension lift, for example, the components in reds. Here are a example of an aftermarket suspension lift kit. As you can see, there are wheel end, aftermarket wheel end parts and suspension components. The other items utilized in raised vehicles are body lift kits. Again, illustrating, again, these are, again, they're either a hydrometer rubber or a steel spacer put in between the frame